Hey guys, it's Randy with Lowbuck LS here again, and this week I'm going to show you how to get rid of this coolant reservoir. We're going to redo the cooling system, and we'll be installing one of these filler necks in the upper radiator hose. So I'll flip the camera around and I'll show you what we're going to do here. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be redoing the cooling system here, the hoses and stuff on it, to get rid of this coolant reservoir, because now my fender exit and downpipe is in the way of where that coolant tank used to mount. So I've got some parts and pieces here. I've got some 3/4 inch heater hose. I've got this drain fitting that I'm going to install in the bottom radiator hose that'll make draining the coolant easier in the future. Like I showed you earlier, I've got this filler neck and radiator cap, and we're going to put that in the upper rad hose here. I've got a 3/4 by 5/8 heater hose adapter, and I've got some various this is called a bypass cap assortment, just for capping off this hose here between the overflow tank and the radiator. So I'm going to start out by pulling off that lower radiator hose right there and draining all the coolant out of the truck here. Okay, as you can see, I got that bottom radiator hose pulled off there, and coolant's almost all drained out, but you can see the issue and why I want to install that drain fitting in the bottom hose is when you pull that radiator hose off, coolant just goes everywhere. You can see it dripping all over the floor. I've got a pan to try and catch most of it, but there's still some dripping down outside of the pan. So hoping by installing this fitting right here, and it's got this little piece to put a hose on it, that I'll be able to drain the coolant in a neater fashion. So anyways, while that's draining, we will pull this coolant tank out of here. So I'll disconnect that hose right there and disconnect it where it hooks up to the radiator there, and we'll disconnect this hose off the bottom here as well. Okay, so I got that coolant reservoir out of there. Now I'm going to take this hose clamp that's on here and take one of these bypass caps, whichever one fits, probably like a 3/8 one, whatever, and put it over top of this port with that hose clamp there to block that off, and then we'll have to get rid of this hose here. So I got one of them bypass caps put on there, but this hose clamp is too big, so I'll have to come up with another plan here. So I basically just put a big zip tie on there to hold it until I can get a metal hose clamp. Now I'm going to take that hose off the water pump right there that has the old hose that went up to the reservoir. So I got that hose pulled off of there, making more of a mess here. Yeah, there's coolant pretty much everywhere underneath the truck. But now, adjust the light here. Try to hang it up over here for a second. So I'm going to try and make sure my chunk of 3/8 heater hose will fit over that, and then we'll just cut it. This, I'm pretty sure this is 5/8 heater hose here, and cut the hose somewhere in here, and then use that piece I've got to adapt the 3/4 to the 5/8 heater hose. So now I've got that chunk of 3/4 heater hose on there. I'm just gonna run it up yeah, cut both these hoses in here somewhere and join this 3/4 inch heater hose to this 5/8 one. So I got this heater hose cut right here, and that will get rid of that piece. Now I'm just going to, like I said, join up this 3/4 inch one. Cut this right about right where my thumb is at there and splice them together. So I'm going to use this 5/8 by 3/4 adapter to splice them hoses together. And there you can see I've joined that 5/8 to the 3/4 and have it hooked up to the water pump there. I'll just put hose clamps on them now to keep them all secure. Okay, you can see I've got that section all secured with hose clamps now. Now I'm going to cut a section out of this upper radiator hose here so I can install this filler neck. Okay, so I got my upper rad hose cut here, and I'm running into a problem in that this 1.5 inch filler neck that I got to put in the upper rad hose doesn't fit. This hose must be like 1.25 inch or something, because it won't fit in there. So I went and gonna have to use some adapters here. What I really need to do is get a 1.25 inch filler neck, but it's Saturday and there's no way I'll find one locally today. So for now I'm just going to do some adapting here to make it work. So in order to get my 1.25 inch rad hose to work with my 1.5 inch filler neck, I just got one of these adapters from Home Depot. So it's 1.25 inch on this end and 1.5 inch on this end. So we'll get those put in there now, and a couple chunks of hose, and get her into this upper rad hose here. Okay, so I got that filler neck in with those adapter pieces, and yes, I know it looks ridiculous having 6 hose clamps within a foot, but I want to be able to drive the truck, so I've ordered up, so what I should have got was an 1.25 inch filler neck, and what I got was 1.5 inch, so I've got an 1.25 inch one coming, but until then, this will have to do. So you can see it from another angle there. So that should be good for the upper rad hose. Now I'm going to pull the lower rad hose right there, and we'll cut that drain piece into it. Alright, so I got this lower rad hose out of here. So now I'm going to cut it. There's kind of a ridge here. I'm going to cut it at that ridge, and then we'll put this drain fitting in there, and then I'll have to cut another, I don't know, 3-inch piece of hose or whatever to connect this drain fitting to the radiator where this hose used to hook up. So that's what I'll do right now, is cut this hose right here. Alright, so I got that rad hose, lower rad hose trimmed back a bit, and I cut a short, like probably 3-inch, maybe 2.5 inch piece there. And I put that fitting in. The drain fitting is at an angle because you can see there, the lower fitting on the radiator is right above the frame rail. So basically I put this at an angle so it'll come out beside the frame rail. So now we'll get some hose clamps on there and get this lower rad hose back in. Okay, so I got that lower rad hose back on, and I'll shove it in here. Right down there underneath the turbo, you can see that drain fitting that I put in the lower rad hose, and how it's kind of angled to clear that frame rail. Now the next thing I want to do, like, we're pretty well wrapped up. We've got our filler cap in our top rad hose. We've got the heater line adapted to 3/4 and spliced up. We've got that drain fitting in our lower rad hose there. The last thing I want to do is there's this steam line that comes from the throttle body. Well, first of all, it comes from that steel tubing, the steam ports on the corners of the head there, and then it goes through the throttle body, and it's this hose just kind of stringing across to the radiator there. So I'm going to drill and tap the water pump right there and put a hose barb in there just to get rid of this 1/3/8 hose that's kind of strung across the middle of nowhere between the throttle body and the radiator. So that's the next thing I'm going to do, is drill and tap the water pump right there and put a 3/8 hose barb in there. Okay, so I got a 1/4" NPT tap, which requires a 7/16 drill bit, and I'm going to drill a hole right there for the hose barb for that steam line. So I've got my 7/16 hole drilled right there behind the tensioner for the serpentine belt. Now I'm going to take this 1/4" NPT tap and tap some threads in that hole and clean up those shavings and stuff around there. Okay, you can't really see it very well, but I do have threads tapped in that hole, and I'm going to thread in this 1/4" NPT by 3/8 hose barb, and it'll go right in there. So I'll do that now. And now you can see I've got that hose barb threaded into the hole that I drill and tapped. Now I'm just going to cut this steam line here that comes from the throttle body, kind of make a nice loop here and put it onto that hose barb, and then on this end we'll disconnect it from the radiator and put another one of these rubber caps on there. So that's what we'll do next. And I'm running into problems again. So I cut that hose and it won't fit on the hose barb. Like that hose looks like it's, I don't know, maybe 1/4", and I've got a 3/8 hose barb, so can't get it to fit over there, which is weird, because if you pull the end off the radiator, that sure looks like 3/8. So that's what I based the size of hose barb I bought on, but I can't get that hose stretched over there, so I'll have to go buy a smaller hose barb. So I have to run to the store, and we'll be back with that. Okay, so I went to the store and got a 1/4" NPT by 1/4" hose barb, which is quite a bit smaller, as you can see, than the fitting I just threaded in there. So, oh, and now I just dropped it on the floor, but I'm gonna thread this 3/8 one out and thread that 1/4" one in. Okay, there you can see I've got that 1/4 NPT by 1/4 hose barb fitting installed, and that steam line attached to it. And over here on the radiator, you can see I've got that hose barb thing capped off with one of those bypass caps, just like I did this one on the top. So I think we're pretty well, we'd be ready to put in coolant again and check for leaks. And one thing I noticed that I thought I should point out is, looking through the manual, getting ready to do my cam swap here, and it talks about this hose on the driver's side of the radiator. So there's actually a hose and a drain valve on the bottom left corner of the radiator. So I probably didn't really need to install that fitting in the lower radiator hose on the bottom right. So I guess yeah, the idea is you swing this hose down into a pan and then open that valve down there and drain the radiator. So probably didn't need that one over there, but I guess now I've got 2 ways of draining the coolant system. So I'll just flip the camera around here and tell you what's coming up next. Okay guys, like I said, normally at this point I would put in coolant and let it run for a bit, let the air bubble out, check for leaks, and top it up as needed. But I got to thinking the next thing I want to do on this project truck is change out the cam, and in order to do that I've probably got to pull the radiator and pull the water pump, which I've all got empty right now. So I don't think I'm actually gonna fill up things until after I've done that cam swap. So that'll be the next video. We're basically gonna jump right into doing a cam swap here. So stay tuned for that, and we'll talk to you on the next one.